The presumptive Democratic Party nominee for President Joe Biden has on his short list for a running mate two Californians, Senator Kamala Harris and Congresswoman Karen Bass of Los Angeles. Supporters of both are now lobbying heavily for the selection of each of those two women. Each have advantages and disadvantages. Somebody who knows something or two about this issue is Bob Shrum, the co-director of the Center for the Political Future at USC, and who has run many campaigns, including the presidential efforts by Al Gore and John Kerry. So, Bob, your co-director, Mike Murphy, who couldn't join us today, says when it comes to a Veep selection, the operating principle must be, above all else, do no harm. Do you agree?
Oh, sure. I mean, look at what John McCain did to himself with Sarah Palin. And George H.W. Bush, even though he won, made a disastrous choice with Dan Quayle. So first, you want to make sure you don't do any harm. Secondly, you want to make sure you pick somebody who, if they have to take over the presidency, can do the job. And third, you want to pick somebody, if you can find them, who's going to help you win the election.
Not a lot of people, I suspect, in her district care about the words Congresswoman Bass used in praising Fidel Castro, or the eulogy she wrote for the leader of the one of the leaders of the American Communist Party. But even President Obama's former pollster says those words would mean Biden would probably lose Florida. Do you suspect that may have ended her chances for being picked for the ticket?
I don't know that it ended her chances. It certainly diminished her chances. The statement she issued when Fidel Castro died, mourning the passing of Comandante El Jefe, the commander-in-chief, would hurt her in Florida, would hurt the ticket in Florida. Her visits to Cuba with the Venceremos brigades in the 1970s would hurt in Florida. It's a shame because she's clearly very talented, someone who's capable of working across the aisle. Kevin McCarthy has praised her, the Republican leader in the House. Now, of course, he may want her to be the nominee because of what that might do in Florida.
It seems, though, that the long knives in the party are out for Kamala Harris. Lots of criticism of her, such as comments by former Senator Chris Dodd, who's on the selection committee. What do you make of that?
I don't know. I find it perplexing, but I also think it's helped her. I think when somebody says she's ambitious, the reaction of lots of women is, why can't a woman be ambitious? Wasn't Lyndon Johnson ambitious? Wasn't Joe Biden ambitious when he got picked for vice president in 2008? So I think a lot of the attacks against her, or the notion that somehow or other, because she went after Biden in a debate, she can't be picked, are ridiculous. I mean, JFK picked Lyndon Johnson shortly after he attacked him viciously at the Democratic Convention in 1960. It was the right choice, and it probably helped Kennedy get elected.
Did Mr. Biden box himself in when he said he needed to pick a woman? And what would the reaction be if he didn't pick a woman of color?
Well, first, I think he wanted to box himself in. He believed it was time to have a woman as vice president of the United States, probably, and certainly believed it was time to have a woman as president in 2016. And I think the moment that we're living through with COVID, with the fraught situation racially that we have in the country, it calls for a person of color. It calls for a Kamala Harris. It calls for Karen Bass. It calls for someone like Susan Rice. I think that's just obvious. Amy Klobuchar said it when she withdrew herself from consideration. I think she was absolutely right.
You've been in the position helping pick a running mate for your client. Who would you select?
Oh, I don't. You know, I haven't seen all the vetting materials, so it would be hard to know. And by the way, most of the campaign will never see most of the vetting materials. They're kept confidential. But if there were big problems, and I were in the position I was in some years ago with presidential candidates, I would know about those big problems. So I don't know what big problems there are. I don't know if there are any big problems. And we didn't mention Val Demings, for example, from Florida, who's another person who I think could be picked. But the two most likely picks, let me reiterate, in my view, are Kamala Harris or Susan Rice. I think they'd both be terrific.
Bob Shrum of the Center for the Political Future at USC, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, and stay safe.
Up next, the head of the California Manufacturing and Technology Association on how one key sector in the California economy is helping restaurants, small businesses, and offices around the state when we return.